Right now, your body contains about 250 grams of salt. And if that number drops too low, your muscles stop contracting, your nerves stop firing, your blood pressure collapses, you go into hyponatremia, and within hours, you die. Salt is not a seasoning. It is a biological requirement as non-negotiable as oxygen. So here's the question that should bother you. For the first 300,000 years of human existence, before salt mines, before trade routes, before the Roman soldiers who were literally paid in salt, where did it come from? The answer isn't that ancient humans found salt. The answer is that ancient humans' times were times salt. And the way they maintain that balance will completely change how you think about what food actually is. Most people assume ancient humans had a salt problem, that they were constantly deficient, constantly searching, constantly suffering. That assumption is completely backwards. The real problem ancient humans had with sodium was not scarcity. It was the opposite. Gary Beauchamp, Director Emeritus of the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia, published a landmark analysis in 2009 in the Times of American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, Times arguing that the human craving for salt is not an ancient instinct. It is a times, recent times, one. For the vast majority of human evolutionary history, dietary sodium intake was naturally adequate without any deliberate sourcing. Here's why. A pre-agricultural human eating a diet of wild game, organ meat, blood, fish, shellfish, and unprocessed plant matter was consuming somewhere between 600 and 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day entirely passively. No salt added, no salt needed. The sodium was already inside the food. Modern processed food has trained us to think of salt as something you add times to food. For 290,000 of the 300,000 years humans have existed, salt was something food times contained. The crisis came later, and it came from something nobody expected. The sodium crisis in human history was not caused by a lack of salt deposits. It was caused by agriculture. Here's the biological sequence. Wild meat, particularly organ meat, is naturally high in sodium. A 100-gram serving of raw liver contains approximately 70 milligrams of sodium. Wild game muscle meat contains roughly 50-75 milligrams per 100 grams. Shellfish run even higher. Oysters contain up to 200 milligrams per 100-gram serving, naturally. Now, replace that diet with grain. Wheat contains approximately 2 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. Rice, 1 milligram. Lentils, 2 milligrams. When the Neolithic agricultural transition swept across the Middle East, beginning approximately 10,000 years ago, human populations went from eating high-sodium animal protein to eating almost exclusively low-sodium grain almost overnight in evolutionary terms. Bioarchaeologist Clark Spencer Larson, Ohio State University, published skeletal analysis in 1995 showing that the transition to agriculture produced measurable declines in bone density, stature, and dental health across multiple populations, and that sodium deficiency was one of the proposed contributors to cardiovascular and neurological stress markers visible in those skeletons. Farming didn't just change what humans ate. It created, for the first time in human history, a genuine dietary sodium deficit. And that deficit, not any ancient scarcity, is why salt became the most valuable commodity in the ancient world. The Roman word times salarium times the origin of the English word times salary times referred to salt payments given to soldiers. Salt was money because farming made it scarce for the first time. Before farming, nobody needed to buy what was already in their food. So how did pre-agricultural hunter-gatherers actually get their sodium? The answer that most food historians skip over: they drank blood. This is not speculative. It is one of the most well-documented nutritional practices in anthropology. The Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania, one of the most studied traditional pastoralist cultures on Earth, consume fresh cattle blood as a regular dietary staple. A single liter of cattle blood contains approximately 900 milligrams of sodium. 1 liter. No processing. No salt mines. No trade routes. But the Maasai are not an isolated example. They represent a preserved version of a near-universal ancient practice. Archaeologist and food historian Richard Wrangham Harvard University, documented in his 2009 book, Times Catching Fire, times that blood consumption appears in the archaeological and anthropological record of hunter-gatherer societies across Africa, the Arctic, Central Asia, and the Americas, in every case as a primary sodium source in environments where plant salt was unavailable. The Inuit of the Canadian Arctic provide the most extreme example. Traditional Inuit diet contained almost zero plant matter and zero access to salt deposits. Their sodium came entirely from animal sources: meat, fish, marine mammal, blood, and fat. And their sodium intake was not only adequate, but, according to analysis by biomedical researcher Staffan Lindeberg, published in 2010, optimal times by modern clinical standards. No salt shaker, no trade, no deficiency, just an understanding encoded in culture and diet that the animal contains everything the human body needs. But not every ancient population was eating meat 3 times a day. What about the groups living in dense forests? The early plant-dependent populations in tropical environments where large game was scarce, they found something remarkable. Certain plants, when burned, produce ash with extraordinarily high sodium content. Ethnobotanist Timothy Johns, McGill University, documented this in a 1990 study of traditional plant ash use across sub-Saharan Africa and Papua New Guinea. Groups in the Congo Basin, with no access to animal blood and no salt deposits within hundreds of miles, were burning specific wood species, particularly Times Sesbania times and certain palm varieties, and adding the ash directly to food during cooking. The ash functioned as a sodium delivery system. Chemical analysis of these plant ashes shows sodium concentrations of up to 800 milligrams per 100 grams, comparable to using actual salt. The communities that developed this practice did so without chemistry, without formal knowledge of sodium biology, and without any outside instruction. They arrived at the solution empirically. Food cooked with this ash tasted better, and people who ate it felt stronger and got sick less often. They didn't know they were solving a sodium deficiency. They just knew the ash worked. And they were right. Here's the section that reframes everything. Ancient humans didn't only observe their own hunger for salt. They watched animals, and animals led them directly to the source. Natural salt licks, mineral deposits where sodium leaches to the surface, are one of the most consistent features in large mammal ecology worldwide. Elephants travel up to 50 kilometers to reach specific salt lick sites in Uganda. Deer, bison, mountain goats, and tapirs all congregate at mineral deposits with behavioral urgency that early humans would have immediately recognized. Archaeological evidence shows that early human hunting sites cluster around natural salt licks with statistical significance far beyond coincidence. David Pilbeam, Harvard paleoanthropologist, has noted that salt lick locations in East Africa correspond to some of the densest concentrations of early hominin tool use in the record. These weren't coincidental campsites. They were strategic positions. Ancient humans didn't discover salt licks by accident. They followed the animals that needed them for the same reason humans did. The elephant was the map. The bison was the compass. And a salt lick in prehistoric Kenya wasn't just a mineral deposit. It was a supermarket, a watering hole, a hunting ground, and a sodium source, all in one location. Here's the truth hiding underneath all of this. Ancient humans didn't survive times without time's salt. They survived because they had built entire lifestyles, their diet, their hunting patterns, their fire practices, their relationship with animals around acquiring sodium without ever naming it. They didn't have the concept of sodium. They didn't have chemistry. They didn't have nutritional science. But their bodies knew. And over thousands of generations, culture adapted to serve what the body knew. The Inuit followed seals. The Maasai drank blood. The Congo Basin communities burned specific wood. The savanna hunters camped beside elephant trails that led to mineral licks. Every single one of these strategies worked. Every single one of them kept populations alive and healthy across millennia, with zero formal understanding of the molecule they were managing. And then agriculture happened. And suddenly, for the first time, the molecule became visible, because for the first time, it was missing. Salt became precious the moment we stopped eating the things that contained it. We didn't discover salt's value. We times lost times it, and then we spent the next 10,000 years desperately trying to get it back. Remember the 250 grams of salt inside your body right now. That sodium didn't come from a salt shaker. It came from food, just like it always did for every human who lived before you. The difference is that every ancient human who needed sodium ate something that had it naturally and built their entire world around making sure that never changed. We changed it. We built agriculture and cities and supply chains and suddenly needed Roman soldiers and trade empires and salt taxes just to replace what a single piece of wild liver used to give us for free. The ancient human didn't survive without salt. The ancient human survived times because they never separated themselves from it in the first place. We're the ones who had to figure out how to get it back.